Cool, it's live.
Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Dr. Patrick Singh, and I'm a best-selling author of Seven Steps to Greatness, as well founder of Greatness University. Today, I'm very pleased to share with you a great story from Hector Cruz, and he'll be talking about his greatness. He'll be talking about how he's moved from where he was to never giving up and achieving what he has become today. So thank you very much for coming on this show, Hector, and I'm very pleased to welcome you. So how are you?
Good, good. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. It's always, as Les Brown says, it's always a great pleasure when great people meet.
Exactly. You're very true.
Yes. So could you tell us more about you? Who are you and what do you do? Where do you live? So that whoever is seeing or watching us today and in the future can know a bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I have three beautiful children, and I've taken the time to develop a new business for myself in helping people see greatness in themselves, which the company's name is Dynamic Minds, and I just started it this past year. So I've been putting a lot of effort into that, and that's been my pretty much my full-time job in that as far as being at home.
Oh, that's great. So you're saying you help people see their greatness. What does that involve? What do you exactly, how do you help them?
I participate at local schools. I've currently right now in my son's school, he has a kindergarten school that I participate once a week in aiding or helping people get unstuck, like Les Brown says. And I do it for about an hour, and I just share tips on setting goals, keeping yourself motivated, learning to understand how inspiration works, and knowing that as long as you're open-minded to everything, everything becomes so much easier. And I've been really, really pushing that to get that message out there and help people. So that's pretty much what I do.
Oh, thank you very much for that great work. And I do believe that the work you're doing today is based on you. It's based on your story. Could you tell us a bit about your story? In other words, how did you come to be who you are today? About your education, for example?
Yeah, as a kid, I was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and it was really difficult understanding how to learn in school because a lot of the schools that I went to were academically, they were the type of classes where they were big classes, and I had a lot of hard time trying to focus on it because of my deficiency on that note. And I had to develop a way of learning where it wasn't like other kids. And it took me a long time to do that. And when I got into high school, it became a little easier, but not as easy as it is now to do it. So when in high school, it was really difficult because I had to take information in little chunks, and I'd always have to raise my hand and ask questions repeatedly. And I realized that I'm different from the other kids because in my schools that I was in were called special education. And in special education, it was a little different than normal classes where the teacher would focus more one-on-one with the student because of the difficulty in learning. But as time went by, I developed the tools to learn, and it became really hard because when you're in school and you're treated differently, because the room that I was in for special education was only one room for the entire school. So I would be in this room for all my subjects. And it was really difficult, not only in the learning aspect, but because of a self-esteem aspect was really difficult because people treated you differently. Mm-hmm. They treated you like you weren't normal. They treated you like there was something wrong with you. And to constantly hear throughout high school, like, you're a retard, you're an idiot. People didn't understand what special education really was. So they were very ignorant, and they were just very mean about it. But I didn't let that get to me. And I fought it and fought it and fought it. And I kept doing it. And I graduated in 2000 with the diploma. And I was really proud that I pushed to get that far as academically. And that was the farthest I furthered my education on that note. I didn't have a chance to really pursue college because that's when the transition changed in my whole life as far as difficulty, what levels.
Wow, that is a very powerful experience you're sharing. And I guess even in our world today, there are people who are still marginalized within the education systems around the world, whereby students or children with different needs are not either catered for, or there's no provision for them in place to help them achieve. So is there any in the education system and the school you were, that people that acted as your role models to keep you going, or you feel that everything more or less was against you and you had to develop your own survival techniques to be able to go through the experience?
I gotta admit, I was a pretty big hothead in high school. So because of my resentment towards other students that were not in special education was pretty high, and I used to go into detention. And I remember my detention teacher, Mr. Metcalf, he would always tell me, "Get your head on together, get your head together. Stop doing this, getting angry all the time." And that was a turning point in that school that I had to do something. I had to stop using everybody else as a reason why I'm not getting anywhere. And that was honestly the turning point in my life, where he was just like, tough love. And I soaked it up and I did what I had to do. And that was a transition for me right there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So looking at the other students who are with you in those classes, how did they relate with you? Or did you feel closer to each other given that you had more or less similar provision in that school? Or are there things that possibly you learned from them and those helped you to become who you are today?
Learning from the students in my classroom was hard because everybody had their own difficulties as far as whatever it may be. So the classroom was really negative, to be honest. Like every morning and every afternoon every morning we come in, nobody wanted to be there. But I think it could have been the fact that we were like teenagers. We just didn't like school. But because we all had difficulties, it was hard to learn from each other. It really was, because it's just resentment in the classroom was so high that it was so negative, and it was hard to pull yourself out of it. So I can't really say I've learned anything positive in that note. I didn't really have any friends in the classroom, like best friends. And I think that's pretty much sums it up. It was really negative. I didn't really like being there. People would fight and throw in chairs. It was ugly. So it was.
Oh. Thank you very much for sharing that part of it. Just in case you've just joined us, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm interviewing or talking to Hector Cruz. Hector Cruz lives in Rhode Island, and he's sharing his story on how Les Brown changed his life. His story will be published in my upcoming book, which is Les Brown Changed My Life, along 76 other people who are in this book, which will be launched next month. Thank you very much, Hector, for talking to us. And so what was the situation like at home after looking at school and how school was very hard for you and challenging? When you come back home, what would it be like?
It was hard because my mom was a very strict mom. She was young, and she had me when she was 15. So growing up, and even till when I was in high school, she wasn't the best role model. I'm not talking bad about my mom. We get along right now, but my mother, it's hard for my mother to see positivity out of life and see enthusiasm and have enthusiasm. So whenever I was doing something and I did something in school, it was always, you never did anything right. You're not doing it right. You gotta, and throwing that on somebody not doing it right doesn't really help if you're not going to help provide positive outcome out of it. So a lot of my childhood, my mother was very negative. So I had to figure out how to I had to recycle that negativity of not having that kind of support with my mom into positivity. So what I did was I knew that my mom wasn't so enthusiastic about stuff. And she's like, whenever I did something wrong, it was never right. I had to realize that I could do it. I just had to figure it out. And that's where my dad came into play. My dad was, he was great on that note because he was a jack of all trades, master of none. And he taught me that as long as you're persistent in your problem and figuring it out, you'll eventually figure it out. So I got my persistence from my dad. My dad taught me that no matter how bad life gets, there's always a way as long as you keep going. And that stuck with me to basically anything I want to do.
There's always a way. I like that. That's always true. There's always a way. Especially if you're determined to find that way. Because there are lots of people who give up. Who
Absolutely.
don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't see any way. Or they don't try to make a way where there is no way. So looking at the two experiences that you've shared with us, at home and at school, one of the things that comes out clearly for me, and I guess for my viewers, is that you are very persistent. In other words, you did not give up. How did you develop that character of never giving up? Is there someone that acted as your role model that you did not just give up, but you continued being persistent?
My grandmother.
Yes.
My grandmother, God bless her soul. She passed away a while ago. She was huge in faith. I grew up Catholic and stuff, and I had a tough time. And whenever I had a tough time, she would always tell me, Lee, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You got to believe that you can do it. And that stuck to me for a long time. And it was so difficult to understand because my grandmother was such in faith and she was so strong in her faith, but she didn't believe in herself. And when I watched my grandmother tell me that I could do it and seeing that she was she believed, but she was scared. And that taught me a lot because she taught me that everything you could ever need, everything you could ever want is in you. And I'm not to get all religious and stuff because some people don't believe in certain things, but she told me word for word, God has given you everything you could ever need. There's nothing else you need to get where you need to go. And that's what she told me. And that right there empowered me to be persistent because everything you need is right there in you.
Everything you needed was in you. And that kept you persistent. That gave you the courage to continue. That gave you the power to go through the circumstances of life and grow through the circumstances. Because there are lots of people go through life. People go through the events of life. They go through, but they don't grow. But you got the growth.
Got the growth aspect, yes. She enlisted that in me. That everything on the outside is just outside. It's not you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then there came a time in your story. You tell us that one moment there came a time that you left home and you knew you could not go back home, and you were adopted by the streets. And during those moments in your story, as written in the book, This Brown Changed Our Lives, you're saying that during those moments, especially during the winter months, you would store your food in the snow. And could you tell us more about that? Because it's very...
It's great. It's great. I try not to think too much about it, but I've come to terms with it,
Yes.
It's a painful time, but we all have painful moments, To share with you on that note, it was tough because me and my mom were like two lions on a mountain trying to rule one mountain. And we can never really see eye to eye. So, I had to take responsibility for my actions. I was young. I was a teenager. I'm not a teenager, but I was in my early 20s. And I'm learning that, it's life doesn't have handouts. You can't just go out there and expect things to work out for you. Because I was so used to being at home that when me and my mom got into that argument, and I remember her telling me, she's like, you know what, you want your own rules, get your own place. And I manned up and took responsibility, and I left, and that was 100% my decision. But not realizing that as soon as I walked out that door and I had my backpack, I had my clothes, all that stuff, the rules, like everything changed. And I saw on a different perspective when I was sitting on the sidewalk that afternoon asking for people for money and just watching people pass by while I'm sitting on the sidewalk trying to get money for food. It was humbling, but it was difficult at the same time, because it's like, now I see what it's like to be on the other side of not having money. So to make a long story short, I don't want to get too much into it. I had to figure things out that same day. There was nobody to bail me out. I didn't have any money. I had to go figure out how to get money. I was literally walking around because the town that I was in at the time is Milford. I had to get a job, and I literally had to walk miles and miles and miles to different places in Milford to get a job. And I did it because I had to. I needed to get money. I needed to get food. I needed to figure out where the hell I was going to sleep that night. And as time went by, it was more difficult to try to get a job because I didn't have any identification. I didn't have any social security card with me, nothing. And it's harder to get a job when you don't have that stuff to provide. Mm-hmm. So I just kept looking, and I ended up getting a job. And I got money. I started, buying food, and I started staying in, like, they call them like the, not projects, but there was like a condominiums or whatnot, like in the area. I had to try to sneak in the hallway late at night so I could sleep there because I had nowhere to sleep. And then I would bounce from place to place to place. And then the winter came, and I knew that was when it was a game changer, because I was on and off, like sleeping places. And when the winter came, I didn't have anywhere to go. I had to figure it out, and I had to buy food. So I stored food. And the reason why I stored food in the snow is because where I stored my food, the people who were around the area that would walk around would steal my food. So I had to pick a spot, put the food there, put the snow over it, and remember that that's where I left it. And then I remember that night, I needed, it was so cold. It was really it was blizzard that night. And I went to the Milford PD, and I was like, dude, I need a place to sleep. I can't sleep out there. And the guy was like, realistically, we can't let anybody stay in the police station. And I was like, dude, it's cold. It's cold as heck outside. And he's like, all right, well, here's what I'll do for you. You can only stay here for one night. You can stay on the bench. And it literally was like the bench in the PD. You walk in, there's two benches. He let me sleep. And that was like the first time I slept in a police station, and like just to sleep on a bench, you know what I mean? It was just so crazy. And I just kept working at myself little by little, and getting out of that funk, getting out of that bad predicament. I had to do whatever it took to get out of it. And I remember down the road, I was walking, I saw a Ford Escort GT, and I knocked on the door, and nonetheless, it was the Milford, the chief of police. His name was Tom O'Laughlin, and he's like, I know you. I know you. I'm like, yeah, I was sleeping at the police station. He's like, all right. I was like, what's wrong with the car? He goes, it needs a little work. And I got the car from him, fixed it up, and got back on the road. And that was that transition from streets to actually having a car to getting where I needed to go.
Wow. Very much touching. So how did Les Brown impact on your life then? At what point? Because you say Les Brown helped you change your life.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting, that I remember going to the library and stopping by there, and I was watching YouTube videos because they had free internet at the time, and you could like go to the library and look at stuff and whatnot. I was watching YouTube, and I saw, I think it was Unstuck. It was How to Get Unstuck, or Negative People. Both of the two that same day. And I was like, wow, this guy's this guy's awesome. And the more he started talk about Unstuck was the more that I already like did all that. Like it just clicked. And the more I listened to it, that 45-minute speech, I was like, wow, you know, this guy knows where I'm coming from, being, educable, mentally retarded, or told that he was. I could relate to that with my special education, my classrooms, people picking on you, not seeing greatness in you. Then the struggle when he was a disc jockey, all the transitions that he was going through, I could relate in some way, shape, or form because I was persistent. I didn't let life stop me. And that's what really changed my life when I saw Les Brown for the first time, and I just kept going from there and learning from him.
So seeing Les Brown and listening to his message, you were able more or less to read your life in one go in his story.
Yep.
And that's why we titled your story The Les Brown of Rhode Island, because more or less share similar, very, very similar experiences from education, home environment, the struggles of life, going through the streets and struggling to get a job, and finally being where you are this moment in time. Les Brown has lots of powerful messages. Is there one of the powerful messages that you really felt that in your heart and possibly day in, day out, you keep remembering it? Like for me, one of them is it's possible. Whatever I do, I believe it's possible. So that's what allows me to stretch myself so that I can reach the possibilities out there, as well as stretch myself to the limits of my experience. So what are those messages, one or two quotes that help you to stay on track or help you keep unstuck? Yes.
My great message to all you guys that I got from Les Brown, whatever you're seeking, it's seeking you. That's the one thing I have in my mind every single day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the message I got.
Whatever you're seeking is seeking you. And there comes a point whereby you're the seeker and what you're seeking meet. And that's why you make your dreams come true.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why living your dream starts from. So how can you help my viewers live their dreams, looking that you've gone through all the struggles of life and you've stayed persistent. You've always not given up on life, and life has not given up on you, definitely. So how can you help people might be in a similar situation like you? What are the kind of services or help you can give them so that they too are able to make the best out of this life?
If I was to give anything to anybody suggestion-wise, don't let your negative self-talk overpower you. Mm-hmm. Don't let anything don't let don't let that doubt in your mind. Don't let that little person saying you can't do something. Don't let that one thing take over you, because once it takes over you, it's hard to get out of that. So whatever doubts, fears, whatever risks you think are like that you can't handle, you can handle anything. The human spirit is amazing. It can do anything you want it, but you got to believe.
Definitely, God believe, and we can handle anything. We can achieve anything if only we believe that is possible.
Yep.
Someone said we become what we think. We become what we think. If I think of myself as a teacher, then I can start working towards becoming a teacher. If I think of myself as a successful business person, then I can work towards becoming a successful business person. If I think of myself as an author, then I can as well move towards that direction and become one. In other words, we become what we think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So just recap on what we've been talking about this afternoon. Very pleased to be hosting Hector Cruz. Hector, he lives in Rhode Island, and he's been sharing with us his story on how Les Brown changed his life. He's gone through his story, and we looked at his education, looked at his home environment, looked at how he struggled to make a life in his hometown, and finally is at a point where he can help others like you and me grow through life, make the best of our lives. So how can people get in touch with you and the kind of things you may be able to help them with?
You can right now. The best way to get in touch with me is probably my Facebook page. You can just message me, and I'm pretty good about responding quickly to anybody if they're ever needing a little bit of advice. I'm always open to help everybody. So just check out my Facebook page, and I'll definitely be there to respond to any questions anybody has.
Thank you very much for being at the service of everyone who is ready to learn from you, anyone who is ready to know more about you and your story. And I'm sure maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you'll be able to share all or the whole of your story in your own book. At the moment, yes, I know you've shared part of that story in this book, which is Let's Promote Change Our Lives. But I believe that there is a book within you. And definitely the world is waiting to read that book so that they can make their lives better, so that life can be better because of you. And they'll be able to say, Hector, because of you, I did not give up on life.
It'd be a great feeling one day.
Yes, definitely. You're already great.
You too. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your time in this whole conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye, my friend.